The illusion of peace ended on the night Xiao Phong turned 14. There was no thunder, no omen in the sky, only a dull, oppressive stillness that settled over the village as dusk fell. Xiao Phong was returning home when he saw his father standing by the riverbank, his silhouette half submerged in mist. "Come here," his father called softly. The voice was familiar, too familiar. Relief washed over Xiao Phong as he stepped closer, unaware that the air around the river had grown unnaturally cold. When his father reached out and took his hand, Xiao Phong felt it immediately. The touch was wrong. The skin beneath his fingers softened, then collapsed, peeling away like soaked cloth. In the blink of an eye, flesh dissolved to reveal bare white bone, slick and glistening. Xiao Phong gasped, but before he could react, an overwhelming force seized him and dragged him forward. The river swallowed them both. Cold water surged into his lungs as the world turned black. Beneath the surface, Xiao Phong glimpsed something blooming slowly in the darkness. A black lotus, its petals unfurling one by one, exuding a deathly chill that gnawed at his soul. Behind it, an immense shadow rose, a gate, forged from darkness and silence, bound with chains that rattled as if stirred by unseen hands. Whispers echoed from beyond, countless voices overlapping, pleading, cursing, weeping. In that moment, Xiao Phong did not understand what he was seeing, but fate did. As the black lotus fully bloomed, a searing pain tore through his chest. Something ancient and hidden was marked, exposed to the underworld itself. The gates of the nether realm had opened, and his name had been written upon them. Xiao Phong awoke choking on river water, his body convulsing violently. He lay sprawled on the muddy bank, surrounded by villagers, whose faces were pale with terror. His mother clutched him tightly, her arms trembling. Only when his breathing steadied did the truth emerge, spoken in hushed voices, heavy with fear. His father was dead, not drowned, slaughtered. The body had been discovered downstream, the skin stripped completely from the flesh, as though peeled away by deliberate, merciless hands. Yin energy clung to the corpse so thickly that those who approached felt their limbs go numb. The elders whispered that if the body were not buried before sunset, resentment would take root, and the corpse would rise as something no longer human. The figure Xiao Phong had followed to the river was not his father. It was a malevolent entity wearing his face, drawn by blood ties and unfinished karma. The fragile barrier that had protected Xiao Phong since birth was gone. The stone stele had cracked, the dragon's concealment had faltered, his existence had been noticed. That night, the village rushed through funeral preparations. Paper money burned endlessly. Incense smoke choked the air. Yet even with rituals performed, the darkness did not recede. Something lingered just beyond the firelight, watching, waiting. When the coffin was finally lowered into the ground, Xiao Phong collapsed to his knees. Grief surged uncontrollably, tearing through him like a storm. Instinct drove him to bow, deeply, desperately, to beg forgiveness from his father's spirit, from heaven, from any power that might still be listening. Before his forehead touched the earth, a hand clamped down on his shoulder. His mother. Her grip was unyielding, far stronger than it should have been. She forced him upright, her eyes blazing with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. "Do not kneel," she said. The villagers froze. Kneeling before the dead was sacred tradition. Refusing it was unthinkable. Yet as Xiao Phong was pulled upright, he felt something invisible lift from his chest, like a final thread being severed, before it could strangle his life force. Only much later would he understand. That bow would have cut off what little fate he had left. That night, Xiao Phong overheard whispered arguments behind closed doors. His mother's voice was low and sharp, his grandfather's tone grave, strained. Words drifted through the darkness. Phoenix fate, marked by the underworld, life-bound energy. Xiao Phong lay awake, heart pounding. For the first time, he realized something he had never dared consider. His mother was not an ordinary woman. As midnight passed, the air within the Chen household grew heavy. Candles flickered without wind. The stone stele in the courtyard let out a dull, muffled crack, deep, internal, like a bone splintering under pressure. Far beneath the well, the golden dragon stirred. The triangle of balance had collapsed. Xiao Phong felt it then, a sharp, suffocating weight pressing down on him from all directions. The phoenix mark burned faintly beneath his skin, no longer dormant, no longer silent. His grandfather stood outside beneath the stars, shoulders stooped, staring at the sky with eyes full of resignation. "The delay has ended," he whispered. At 14 years of age, Xiao Feng's fate was no longer sealed, no longer hidden. It had been broken open. From this night onward, calamity would no longer circle at a distance. It would come for him directly. The night after Xiao Feng's fate was shattered, the Chen household no longer belonged to the living alone. Yin energy seeped through the cracks in the walls, thick and damp, carrying whispers that did not belong to any human throat. Lamps burned low despite full oil. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, clinging to corners as if reluctant to leave. At the center of it all stood the grandfather. For the first time in his life, he removed the jade ring he had worn since youth. Beneath it, his finger was scarred, an old wound that had never fully healed. He sliced it open without hesitation, letting dark red blood drip onto a yellow talisman inscribed with ancient characters. This was no ordinary summoning. It was a blood oath. He carried the talisman deep into the mountains, to a forgotten shrine swallowed by vines and moss. The stone fox statue at its center had long lost one eye, its surface cracked and eroded by time. To ordinary villagers, it was nothing more than a relic of superstition. To those who knew, it was a threshold. The grandfather knelt. He pressed his bleeding palm against the cold stone and spoke with a voice stripped of pride. "Fox Immortal Lady," he said, "I offer blood and vow. I ask not for wealth, not for power, only a single path of survival for my grandson." The forest went silent, wind died, leaves froze mid-fall. Then laughter echoed softly through the trees, light, amused, yet carrying an undercurrent of something ancient and dangerous. Mist gathered before the shrine, coiling and twisting until it formed the shape of a woman draped in white robes. Behind her, 8 vast foxtails swayed slowly, each one shimmering with spiritual light. Her eyes were sharp, luminous, and calculating. "A phoenix-marked child," she murmured, "sheltered by a broken dragon and a dying stone. You humans are bold." The grandfather bowed deeply, his forehead touching the stone. "I know the price," he said hoarsely, "and I accept it." The Fox Immortal laughed again, this time colder. "I am not yet complete," she said. "My 9th tail has not been forged. I cannot defy heaven freely." She circled him slowly, her gaze piercing through flesh and bone, straight into the tangled threads of fate, surrounding Xiao Phong. This child's destiny is no longer merely his own. The underworld has marked him, heaven has noticed him. Even I can only intervene once. The words struck like a hammer. Once. The grandfather's shoulders trembled, but he did not retreat. Once is enough, he said, as long as he lives. The Fox Immortal raised her hand. Spiritual flames flickered in her palm, forming a sigil that pulsed with forbidden power. I will conceal the phoenix aura, she declared. I will blur his presence from most eyes, demonic, human, and celestial alike. I will shield him through one tribulation. But, she continued, her voice sharpening, the scales must balance. She laid out the conditions without mercy. When Xiao Phong turned 17, he would face a life-and-death trial he must endure without her aid. If he survived, the pact would hold. If he failed, his soul would be forfeit. And beyond that, when my own heavenly tribulation descends, she said quietly, this child will stand in my place and bear a portion of that thunder. The grandfather's breath caught. To take on a heavenly tribulation meant courting annihilation. Yet he did not hesitate. He slammed his bleeding palm onto the altar. I agree. The shrine shook. Blood seeped into the stone, glowing briefly before vanishing. The covenant was sealed, not by heaven's permission, but by mutual defiance. The Fox Immortal smiled faintly. Very well, she said. Remember, this is not mercy, this is exchange. When the grandfather returned home, dawn was breaking. Xiao Phong lay unconscious, his breathing shallow, his chest burning faintly beneath the skin. The phoenix mark flickered weakly, as if struggling to remain hidden. The Fox Immortal's power descended like a veil. The mark dimmed. The oppressive pressure in the air receded. The whispers faded. Even the lingering stench of the underworld thinned, as though reality itself had exhaled. For the first time since the river incident, Xiao Phong slept peacefully. But the grandfather knew better than to rejoice. This was not salvation, it was postponement. The stone stele outside cracked further, a thin line splitting its center. Deep beneath the well, the golden dragon shifted restlessly, sensing an unfamiliar presence woven into the boy's fate. The balance had been restored, but only barely. That evening, the grandfather sat alone, staring at his blood-stained hands. He had traded away the future, not his own. He had long since accepted his end. But the future storms his grandson would one day face. The road ahead would be darker, more violent, more merciless than ever before. Yet Xiao Phong would live, for now. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the Fox Immortal's laughter echoed faintly in the distance, carried by the wind. One life, her voice whispered, one tribulation, one thunder to bear. The game against fate had begun, and this time heaven itself was watching.